Structural inequality is defined as a condition where one category of people are attributed an unequal status in relation to other categories of people. By this video, we are trying to acknowledge the inequalities that are faced by the people of India when it comes to the diversified culture of food and job security. The COVID-19 pandemic has taken a toll on people, and it has worsened the conditions for some individuals. The inequality in the distribution and consumption of food and that of job security has become massive during this pandemic. According to the study researcher from RMIT University in Australia, I quote, "Traditionally, we have thought about the short-term consequences of job insecurity, that it hurts your well-being, physical health, and also the sense of self-esteem." Unquote. The researcher further added, job insecurity is in fact more likely to withdraw the efforts of the people and shy away from building strong, positive working relationships, which can undermine their productivity in the long run. As unemployment emergency develops in India, additionally, working experts look for professional stability from their bosses. As much as 52% of the workforce is eager to relinquish over 10% of their pay to have professional stability, as per a Randstad report. Encountering chronic job insecurity can change your character for the worse, stated by the researchers, adding that those exposed to job insecurity over 4 years turned out to be less steady, less pleasant, and at the same time less reliable. Before this pandemic even came into our notice, India was already facing a job crisis. Between 2011 and 2015, the unemployment rate in India rose from 3% to 5% and is estimated to have further increased to 7% by the end of 2018. Making matters worse, only 4.3 million jobs have been created per year since 2012, even though 12 million people enter the workforce every year. A report from the Confederation of Indian Industry has also brought to light some scary facts about job loss in India. On the jobs front, about 52% of the firms foresee job losses in their respective sectors, resulting from the impact of the coronavirus outbreak and the ensuing lockdown, while the proportion of jobs that are expected to be cut are quite staggered. A significant proportion of the firms expect less than 15% job losses, while 32% of the firms expect to shed about 15 to 30% of jobs once the lockdown ends, stated a PTI report. After taking into account the figures given by the CEOs across sectors, the numbers can be very scary because it translates to over 100 million job loss in the country. Given the situation, employees have started accepting their fate silently when they were asked to accept pay cuts. Pay cuts across the industries, it varied from 5% to over 50%. The gender gap always existed in India, and so the same could be experienced by women. The female labor force participation rate in India declined from 34.8% to 27% in the 2 decades before 2013, according to the World Bank report. When Prime Minister Narendra Modi on March 25th imposed a lockdown on this nation of 1.3 billion people, many women were set back even further. Oxfam India estimates the economic loss from women losing their jobs during the pandemic at about $216 billion, knocking off 8% from the country's gross domestic product. This clouds women's already poor economic outlook. The World Economic Forum's Global Gender Gap Index 2020 ranks India as 112th of 153 countries in offering equal opportunities to women and men. Women often don't have the same access to healthcare and education as their male counterparts. At least 4 out of 10 women in India lost their jobs due to the coronavirus pandemic, reveals an analysis of the latest Center for Monitoring Indian Economy's Consumers Pyramids Household Survey data. An estimated 17 million women have been left jobless in both the formal and informal sectors between March and April 2020, owing to the nationwide lockdown to curb the spread of this coronavirus. The issue is the existing gender discrimination at workplace, which is one of the major reasons for people losing out on their jobs. Gender discrimination at the workplace refers to the unfavorable treatment of workers based on their gender or because they do not conform to traditional roles of femininity or masculinity. It can occur at all stages of employment, from job descriptions to dismissal, as demonstrated here. Talking about the alienation that is faced by the laborers is something that always goes unnoticed. These laborers, out of the 1.3 billion population, are the ones who have felt job security at every stage of their lives. The reason as to why the laborers are a victim of this alienation is because the capitalists take credit for the surplus value that is added to the work by the laborers. This ideology was brought into existence by Marx, which replicates the real image of India. This pandemic is just another addition to their existing misery. The International Labour Organization predicted that due to the pandemic and the lockdown, about 400 million workers would be poverty-stricken. A lockdown requires businesses to close and lay off workers or not pay them wages. This again highlights the insecure working conditions of the workers. The workers have small incomes and little savings, so they cannot stock up on essentials of life to survive weeks of lockdown. They, and if their family is with them, start to starve unless someone provides them with food. Well, now that brings us to the next major structural inequality, which is food insecurity. Job and food insecurity are interconnected to a very large extent. As the percentage of unemployment increases, the concentration of wealth is in few selective hands, which brings us to the inequality between the rich and the poor. This segregation between the rich and poor leads us to the crisis of wealth and income inequality in India. This gap has widened with time, and with COVID-19, it has reached a stage where one cannot ignore this gap. Simply put, at one extreme, there are these people who are able to follow the rules of the lockdown because they have enough income to buy the basic food items in bulk and quarantine themselves. On the other side, the wage earners, our very own farmers who have lost their jobs, whose crops have been destroyed, cannot do the same because they have no source of income, and so they cannot quarantine themselves and save themselves from this virus. The distribution and the consumption of food is not done the same for everyone. It is not the same for everyone. Supply chains have broken down. Labor is in short supply, and there has been a surge in food prices, leading to a drop in the food availability. The top 1% of the population owns 30% of the total wealth, which is 50% of the total wealth of the top decile. These are the sources from where we have acquired the information. At last, I would like to thank all my team members for their efforts which helped us complete this assignment successfully. Thank you.